Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and thank you guys so much for all the support in helping me just build this channel up. And without any of like the viewers, subscribers, people that comment or like the videos, I wouldn't have gotten this far as where I am right now. And it's actually quite amazing to see just how far it's come. And I'm truly am so grateful. Now, today I have a really cool keyboard. It's actually from KiiBoom. So KiiBoom sent me out this new board, the Moonshadow V2. So this is the version 2 of the Moonshadow, and it's a 75% board, which I'm really excited to take a look at and see what it's like, because I think this is going to be a really nice sounding, maybe Thocky board. So let's go straight into the unboxing, and please make sure to like and subscribe. So starting off with the unboxing of the KiiBoom Moonshadow V2. Now this is quite a big box when you consider it's only a 75% keyboard. Now, I couldn't find my knife, so we just used the scissors there. We're gonna open this up and take a look. Now you can see, I was actually curious though, to see if that's a penguin or an owl. It kind of looks like both, but I'm really curious to see what's inside this box. So as soon as we open it up, we can see here that we actually get an extra plate. So that's a PC plate in there. We'll have to take a look, of course, later, and of course hear what it sounds like. You get this whole booklet of a manual. This is VIA compatible, which is amazing. You get some extra keycaps as well as switches. So if you're someone that likes to use Mac, it gives you some extra keycaps for that. Now you get this nice braided cable. Gotta admit, the cable is actually really nice. You also get a keycap puller, switch puller. It's just your basic keycap switch puller, I'm gonna be honest with you. Now we're gonna take a look at this board. So as you can see, this is a nice clean build. Now it is supposed to be a quick disassembly board. So as you can see, while I was taking out of the box, it actually came out really quickly. Now it is a bit difficult to put together. You just have to line it up really well, but we're going to go into that later in the review. But I gotta admit, this thing looks nice. That back looks almost like either an envelope or almost like a suit. And I actually really like how the back design is. Now the character, their logo, I'm gonna admit, could do without to make it more of a cleaner look. But as you can see there, it has the switches up there for Bluetooth, wireless, and Mac mode and Windows mode, which is awesome. So we're gonna weigh this board before we go into a sound test, and this thing weighs about 1.5 kilos. And let's hear this board. So now that we're done unboxing, let's take this apart to see what's inside. So get the volume knob off, and then we're going to take a look now at this plate. So as you can see, it's got the ball bearing right there. So that's going to be a quick assembly, disassembly. And surprisingly enough, it's not too thin, which is great. I like how it's not super, super thin for the actual top casing where the gas is going to be connecting. And the top plate is actually really nice, but one thing is you only get the ball bearing on the bottom, so it's only one side. A lot of times you usually get it on both sides. This one's only on one side, which I was kind of surprised to see, as normally it would be on both the bottom and the top. But as you can see here, the top plate is actually not super thin. They did make a really good design of it. It is really strong. It also makes this really interesting pinging sound. It's almost like a note. Like, it actually sounds almost like a note. Now, I can't really get it on my mic, but yeah, it sounded almost like a note. And I would actually tell people to try that out, because it actually does sound like a musical note. Now, as we take it out, we can see here that we have the PCB and then a foam in between. And then we have a FR4 plate on there, and we have these nubs there. So those nubs are going to be actually going into the bottom case. So it's actually supposed to reduce the vibrations. And interesting enough of how this built is that normally other boards, the plate has a little bit that comes out where it's going to be gasket mounted, and then you have the socks on the sides. This one is actually built just fully flat. It's interesting how flush it is. So it's flush, which is actually really nice, and it's very different. Now, as you can see, you have the bottom PCB foam. We also have a foam on the bottom of the board, like the case. It's almost like a styrofoam type feel, as well as a static sheet. This thing is really nice with the weight on the bottom, where you can actually remove it if you'd like to. You have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, so not a huge battery. I'm going to be honest, at around this price range, you'd think it'd actually be about 8,000, but you see the nubs there, and then it actually goes into the case itself, which is really nice. Actually, I'm very interested in how they did this, and it is a really cool way to do it. But I also want to give you a sound test of the Foamless. So as I said, this board comes with also a PC plate. So you get an FR4 and a PC plate. And it's actually really awesome. And you're considering the fact that you get two different options of plates. So you can actually change it up depending on the sound you're looking for, right? With the FR4, you could hear a little bit more of that pinging, the higher clacking sound. Now we're going to try the PC plate and hear how that sounds in comparison with the FR4 plate. So now that we did the foamless, we're actually going to take this apart and of course add the foam back in, because we want to hear, comparison, right? With the foam, without the foam. So this video, I'm actually doing a lot of different sound tests for you guys, just so you can hear the differences and really, be able to hear what you would like more in this board, right? So we're going to put all the foam back, put this casing back together, and then of course hear the full sound test with everything back inside this thing. But as you can see, it's a little bit difficult to put the gasket back together. It is a bit hard. So now that we've done those sound tests, right, and you guys got it from the Lube and the PC plate with the FR4 plate, we're going to have to do a little bit of a mod. Now, I think this board already sounds really great. I'm not going to mod this like a lot. I'm only going to do one layer tape mod because I think that's all that's necessary, you know, especially with the amount of space that's available. It's not a ton. And because this isn't a ball bearing from the top and the bottom of the board, it's only on one side. It's going to be a little bit harder to just to, like, get enough space to really modify it more. That's something just because normally if you have ball bearings on top and bottom, you can actually like clamp it together or loosen it up because, you know, if you loosen it up, you can fit it all together. But unfortunately, if you only get one side, it is a little bit harder. And if you don't have the space, it's just going to come apart. Now, I noticed the stabilizers on the spacebar. They are plate mount stabilizers, but they had a little bit of tinging. I think it's actually, the tinging came after I actually changed the plate. So of course, removing it and such. This thing does come pre-lubed, not a ton, but it still does come slightly pre-lubed. I think in general, the other stabilizers sounded fine, but the spacebar, I could definitely hear the tinging. So we're going to just add some Krytox with the syringe, and that usually helps most of the cases. Something I noticed most recently with more boards that I've been trying is that you don't actually have a lot of tinging or a lot of issues anymore. More of the times it's actually just adding a little bit of lube really helps. And from what I've heard, when it comes to stabilizers, that factories have kind of changed up how they do lubing. So because of the way they changed it up, you could come into issues where stabilizers actually need that syringe with the lube. So keep that in mind for when you are looking at boards now. This is the case now where that might be something that's going to come up a lot more. Now, of course, I've done the lubing of the spacebar. I'm actually going to add a little bit of dampening to the spacebar because I feel like spacebars have a little bit of a hollow sound to it, and you don't want to add too much of this, of course. So this is the car sound dampener that I use, and I use this for a lot of mods for different boards as well when there is space available. But one thing I like about this is that it's easy to cut up, easy to use and fill up space. And even if you have leftover stuff, you can actually reuse them quite easily. Now, I'm not going to fill up too much of this one because one thing I realize as well over time is that if you fill it up way too much, it actually mutes the spacebar too much, and depending on the board, you actually get a really mucky spacebar because it's too muted. So just add a little bit just to fill it up slightly, and then of course hear the spacebar. But of course, we're going to do a modded sound test to listen to it. So now going into the review of the KiiBoom Moonshadow V2. So one thing I noticed of this board is that it sounded really good. I really enjoyed how this board sounds and felt. You do get a little bit of flex, not a ton. It does feel quite tight, to be honest with you. I do love how clean it is in terms of the build itself. And as you can see, right, like, and I could feel on the board itself is the CNC was done really smooth. So the board feels really smooth in terms of the aluminum, and they did a great job with the finish as well. The back also looks super clean. I do love that look where it's almost like a suit. You know, you can think about it either as a suit or a letter, an envelope, but it really felt like a suit to me, especially with like the character. I felt like it kind of matches, right? Like the whole suit look, I think really matches what this character is going to be looking like. So it was a great design from KiiBoom. Now, I do find that the
whole edge of this board is really smooth. You don't have like sharp edges, which is great. Some boards, sometimes after it's finished, you do get some sharp edges. I actually felt that with the Freya. It did have a little bit of a sharp side to it, but I mean, the Freya design is just a different level, but it did have a little bit of a sharpness. Here it doesn't. I do like the fact that it does provide the switches on the top there. It's a really creative way to do it. I think they really could have added the space for the USB dongle, but you know, that's something separate. They actually did a different way, which I will be showing you guys soon. It's a really interesting way they went about it, and I think it's a creative way when you don't add a space for USB dongle on the board itself, and it's actually on the cable. They have this little attachment on the cable that holds the USB dongle, and this is a creative way to go about it. I think I appreciate that they went to this level to have the space available where you can keep your USB dongle so you don't lose it, right? A lot of times, for me personally, I do carry these keyboards around, and not losing the USB dongle is really important. Even if I don't carry it and just have it at home, I tend to lose a lot of these dongles because I'm just leaving it in like different drawers, but it's a great idea for them to actually do it this way, and I do appreciate that. Now, the build itself, something I was mentioning earlier, was that because the ball bearings are only on the top and not on the bottom, you really have to align this really well. So it's not a magnetic attachment on the bottom. I think that would have been a really great idea, actually, if they did ball bearing top and then magnetic bottom, if they're going to do it this way. If you don't line it up perfectly, it's really hard to put back together. It's just a bit weird. I think it's specifically the corners have a rubber around the corners to help with the vibrations, but you really have to align it perfectly or it is very difficult to put back on. Now, this is just a flaw that I've noticed personally. To be fair, you're not going to be opening this up that often, but if you are someone who does, then this is definitely something that, you know, you're going to have to consider, right? Now, this board in total, I have to admit, like, it sounds really great, and how they did it was really amazing in terms of the sound. I think with like providing two plates is a really great idea. You get both like a Clacky and you also get a Thocky from both. And in terms of just this whole look as well, is a great look that they did. I love the black with the, you know, like a creamy white and the orange. The characters, honestly, I think we could do it without. It would have been much cleaner. It's just my honest opinion. Could have been a much cleaner look, especially with this black. Now, as I was saying, this build sounds great. I think they did a great job with it. I do feel though that you don't get a lot of flex, but if you remove the foam, there's a ton of flex. So keep in mind that if you remove the foam, it's really got a lot of flex on the board. Now, this plate mounts of stabilizers, it is decently done. And as I mentioned earlier, it is gonna need some lube. You're gonna get maybe some tinging on some of them, so just keep that in mind. If you have a syringe, it'll be easier to actually fix it. And as I had mentioned, I think a lot of companies, specific ones that are making stabilizers, have changed the way that they're lubing it, which is why you're getting some that do have that tinging. Now, I think in total, this board does come out to be really a good board for someone that's just looking for something simple, but also wants to customize their board slightly. This board also comes with the KiiBoom flick switch. So this is KiiBoom's switch, where I think it really does a great job in terms of sounding like Thocky, but also can sound clacky depending on which plate you're using. It's a very well done switch. I didn't actually have any issues in terms of like stem wobble. As you can see here, when we do the stem wobble little movement to test out how it's like, you're not getting a ton of wobbling, which is a great thing. A lot of times, certain switches can have some wobbling, and technically one bad example would be like the Wuche Studio Morandi switch, which I love in terms of the sound and feel, but it does have stem wobble, which would be awesome if they did bring out a V2 though. Now, in total, I want to show you guys also like the backlighting of this board. So as it does have backlighting available, we're going to do a full backlight test to see, you know, how good is it? Is it bright? Is it accurate? So let's take a look. As you can see here, I'm using a back blue lighting with it, and it isn't too bright. Gonna be honest with you, the lighting is a little bit dimmer. Now this is actually like you can see here with the brightness going up and down. It's not a super bright switch, and it's not a super bright board. That's because of course the keycaps aren't shined through, and the switch does have a diffuser in it, but it still is a slightly dim in terms of the coloring, especially depending on the color you use. You will still be able to see it though, right? It's one of those things where if it's in front of you and your lights are off, you'll still be able to see it. And if you have like a desk in your room and you left the keyboard on your desk and turned, like, you would be able to see it from even like your bed and such. It isn't super dim, but it is still on the dimmer side of backlighting. So keep that in mind. If you do like a super bright keyboard, I think this is a good amount, especially if you're using it in your room and you have the lights off. It is good, and the color is also quite accurate. Now, I also want to go into the website and give you guys a little bit more information. Now, as we go onto the website, you see here on KiiBoom Moonshadow V2, you get 3 different colors. You get pink, you get black, and you get gray. The gray actually kind of reminds me of the shortcut Bridge 75. Now, this thing is $160, so it's definitely not on the super budget side. This is going to be a little bit more because I think budgets around $100 is currently on the market for like an aluminum board. You do get an FR4 that's flex cut. It's get QMK and VIA support, which is great. It is south facing RGBs, so keep that in mind. And it is with the KiiBoom flick switch, so you don't really get other choices. On the website, you also can go all the way to bottom and then download the JSON file. Now, this is VIA compatible, which is amazing. This is something I really do appreciate when companies really take the time to do VIA instead of using maybe a mediocre software. And unfortunately, I don't want to just say that companies are not, but the thing is that sometimes they are trying to make it a little bit more premium where they are using their own software, but unfortunately it's not always the best option. Now, as you can see with VIA, I forgot to turn on the designer tab there, so I just have to open that up, but we can just load it, and then we just click on the KiiBoom JSON file wherever you saved it, and then you'll be able to modify it here. Now you can change the backlighting. It is in Chinese and English, but you do get different backlighting choices, and you can choose solid colors. I'm more of a solid color person than more like a rainbow, so that's just my personal preference. But I do appreciate the VIA support because it's just easier to customize. You can make different layers, and you can even toggle FN layers, like function layers, which is great, and even add macros as you want. So this is a much appreciated thing. Now, of course, we're going to go into Keyboard Inspector to just check to see what the polling rate is. I don't have a tool to check the latency, but for now we just use the Keyboard Inspector to make sure it is getting the 1000 polling rate. And as you can see there, you are getting 1000 hertz, so it is good enough for gaming. Now, I did play games with it. It was decent, but I couldn't super good with it like say other mechanical keyboards. In total though, I took this to the office to use at work. It didn't sound too loud either. It was perfect, right? Gaming wise, I felt that this keyboard worked really well. And in terms of just daily use, it did everything I needed. Now, you're not going to, of course, get a Hall effect, rapid trigger kind of reaction times with this keyboard, but it does work well. Now, of course, I do want to give you guys comparisons with different keyboards as well, because this is a different price range. So you get the $100 range, and then we have the $200 range, and this is in between where it's not $200, but it's not $100. So let me give you a sound test comparison with different boards at different ranges. Now, doing all the sound tests and like hearing the different boards and just my thoughts in terms of this board and where it lands. So this is in between like the $100 range, which is the Rainy 75, ND 75, and the Wakekev 75, and then there is the Lumen Key and the Melectrics, which is going to be at the 200, right? The Lumen Key, sorry, is like actually around like 180 to 200. And then we have the Bridge 75, which actually goes from between 130 to like 180. So you have a really large price range between the Bridge. I would place this at a really good middle point where you're not spending way too much to like get into the mid tier, but you're still higher than the budget line, and you get a little bit more customization with this board. So it does sound really great though. Like out of the box, you're going to get a good board, and it's nice that you get to customize it. And they're looking at this as, the way I see it, a way for someone to get into like a bit of customization in a simple way, all in one box. Now, I would say at this price range, with considering everything, I would put this at a good middle point for anyone that is trying to kind of see and try a little bit of modifications. So you can check it out in the links below.
Now let me know down below in the comments what your guys' thoughts are on the Moonshadow V2. And I have to admit, this build quality of this board, the design looks really nice. Like they did a really great job in terms of making like the back look really slick, and having this extra like design to it with the weight, I think was really well done. It's not a too heavy of a board either. Like the fact that I can kind of hold it with one hand really makes it easy to carry in a way. Of course, it's not going to be easier to carry than like a plastic board. And the pricing on this board is at 160 USD, so it's not on the super budget side. I would say more of the budget aluminum boards is going to be at the 100 USD. A lot of the $100 aluminum boards though aren't quick disassembly, except for the ND75, which kind of, when you think about it, props to Chillkey, because they really did make a great board at that $100 range that you can really make it sound good. You can get the DIY kit, or of course you can spend a little more and get the pre-built version. Now, I would say this $160 range is really sitting more towards like the Lumen Key 75, and I personally like the Lumen Key 75 build quality a bit more. That one was really well done, and I have to admit, like Lumen Key does a really great job in terms of building really quality boards. And the one thing though is the Lumen Key had the Lumen Key software, which I personally don't like. I really like the fact that KiiBoom is using the QMK VIA, which is really much more easier to use. One of the things that I love for companies to do is, having your own personal software is a great thing, especially if you're supporting it and putting the effort to make it better. But if it's going to be something that's like everyone's using it and all you're doing is masking it with your own software, then I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is it's actually more worth it to just go with the VIA than building your own software that isn't really being supported and a lot of effort being put into. I think at the end of the day, having that VIA support is just a better thing for most users, and users are going to really rely on more comfort and use of usability than having like a personal software that really just never open and you won't use. So I do appreciate that they did that with this board, and it does really sound great. Like you get two plates with it, right? You get a PC plate and a FR4 plate, which is awesome. The PC plate really will make a thocky sound, and the FR4 will actually make it a little bit more higher pitch with the clacky sound. So you get the options to choose which one you want and really play around with your board. So I would say, great job on KiiBoom to really making a board that really does kind of help with like the whole custom build portion. And you can remove the foams, as you can saw, and when you remove the foams, it does make it a lot more flexible and actually like have a lot more flex to the board. Of course, the stabilizers aren't going to sound so great, so that's something to keep in mind if you take out all the foam. But of course, if you work on the stabilizers, fix it up a bit, I'm sure you can really get it to work. So take a look in the links below in the description. I'll have the links to this board available, and of course I'll have to catch you guys next time. But please go check out the other videos I got.